with, I began to learn that what we were doing is infiltrating major corporations, attempting to find out secrets that their competitors were paying huge amounts of money to find out.
How did this happen? How did they get access? How could we have prevented them? Ron, help me understand.
And that was the beginning of my career as a corporate spy. I started out making $8 an hour, and by the end of my spying career, I was making $2 million a year.
What?
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. My guest this episode is extraordinary. Their background is extraordinary. When I met them, I was a little caught off guard because of their story and how it relates to cybersecurity. My guest this episode is Robert Kerbeck. Robert is the author of Ruse, Lying the American Dream from Hollywood to Wall Street. Robert also has a background in espionage, not the type that we would normally be used to hearing about, but that's why I thought it would be great to have Robert on the show. Most importantly, Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me. Thanks for that great introduction, too.
So where can we start? Should we start at Hollywood? Should we start at espionage? You help guide me.
Yeah, so for your audience, I was a young guy. I wanted to be an actor. I moved to New York. Actors need survival jobs. Most actors get a job as a bartender or a waiter. Who stumbles into a career as a corporate spy? But that's what happened to me. I had a buddy who had a job in New York, and one day he mentioned it, and then he shut up right away, like he had been told, don't ever tell people what you do. And I said, dude, I'm broke. I need a job. Help me out. And so he very reluctantly got me an interview. I go up to the Upper East Side, which, as your audience may know, is kind of the old money part of Manhattan, very wealthy. I go to a doorman building. I was living in a cave in Hell's Kitchen with 3 other guys. And I go up to the penthouse, and this woman ushers me into the nicest apartment I've ever seen. And so right away, I knew whatever her business was, it was very lucrative. And we had the strangest interview I've ever had. She didn't ask me any questions about my skills. She certainly didn't tell me a thing about what the job was. I leave. My buddy calls and says, you're hired, but don't get too excited because no one is able to do this job. And the next day I started training, and this woman I was training with, I began to learn that what we were doing is we were infiltrating major corporations, attempting to find out secrets that their competitors were paying the woman that I was working for at the time huge amounts of money to find out. And that was the beginning of my career as a corporate spy. I started out making $8 an hour, and by the end of my spying career, I was making $2 million a year.
What? So let's rewind a bit, right? How did that job interview go? Were they very happy with your background of wanting to be an actor? Was that like an advantage for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ron. Yeah, exactly. The woman, she only hired actors because she wanted people that could create personas, characters, do voices, do accents. This is Gerhard calling from the office in Frankfurt, Germany. We have the European Union regulators here, and we need some information from the States. And see how you're smiling and laughing, right? That's every time we would do our accents, the people on the other end of the line would go, oh my God, I got somebody in the London office with an English accent or an Irish accent, the Dublin office, or a German accent, the Frankfurt office, or whatever accent you were doing. They were happy to hear from you. And so they believed that you were with the company. And so if they believed you were with the company and there was some crisis, what wouldn't they tell you? And so we were using, the good old fashioned social engineering phone call, what we called the Ruse call, hence the title of my book, Ruse. We were using the good old fashioned social engineering phone call to get anything and everything we wanted to know from a corporation, including passwords, including new products, pricing, clients, contracts, salaries, anything that a competitor would want to know about their rivals so that they could gain competitive advantage.
Oof. That sounds like a dream job for a lot of people. Just to, be able to like play a character, have fun, get some, juicy information, company secrets. When you think about infiltration, especially like, looking back in your career that spanned from $8 to 2 million in salary, what were some of the steps that you had to take for infiltration, and what were some of the things that you were assigned to collect as an output?
Yeah. So again, great question. And of course, we are having, the social engineering phone call is having a moment, right? We thought the social engineering phone call, the Ruse phone call was dead, was so, 1990s or early 2000s. But of course, we know with the MGM hack that the social engineering phone call was sort of the precursor. And of course, I've been telling people all the time, and now people are finally listening, that the corporations, your clients, your audience, they've done such an incredible job with protecting the technology, right? Using the server and the firewall and the encryption and all of these things designed to make phishing and computer hacking harder than it's ever been, right? But they've left open the back door or the back window, so to speak, in that the good old-fashioned social engineering phone call is easier than ever. If I'm able to get somebody on the inside to tell me anything and everything I want to know because they believe that I'm actually an executive with their company, all of that technology is for naught, right? It's just, and we're seeing now with these ransomware attacks, they almost always begin with social engineering, so that the social engineer is learning all of this information about the company, how they're set up, how they're organized, how their systems work, architecture, network, all of that stuff, so that then the hacker, their job is so much easier because they've hacked people first. And that's something that I talk about all the time, that if corporations aren't going to train, if they're not going to spend any money or hardly any money on educating and training employees, it's just too easy. It's just too easy. They talk about the MGM hack was 10 minutes. I'd like to say I need a little bit more time, but you give me 45 minutes, and I will know anything I want to know about your company. Right. 45 minutes. I will penetrate your firm, and I will learn corporate secrets that are worth, in some cases, tens of millions, and even on occasion, hundreds of millions of dollars.
People forget about just a good old-fashioned phone call. Like, I think phishing is effective because you can spray and pray and, reach a wider audience. But if someone answers the phone, there's that sense of urgency. If you have a request on the phone, I need my account reset, I need a new password, I need this piece of information, you kind of have to respond in the moment.
Yeah, well, look, what are people taught in the corporate world? Be a good teammate, right?
Yes.
That we're always taught about the importance of good culture, right? And so if I call you and I'm doing this crazy German accent, and Gerhard is the head of compliance in Europe, or he heads, whatever department he heads, and by the way, I'm going to be a senior executive. So now I get you, and let's just do a little role play here. You're an analyst that you've been with the firm for 6 months, right? Yep. And all of a sudden you get Gerhard, who's the head of compliance in Europe, on the phone. Now you look me up on the intranet, on the firm's internal database, and you see, Gerhard Mannheim, senior vice president of compliance, and you hear this German accent. Are you thinking that there's an actor putting on a German accent? No, you are not. So you're now going, oh my God, I have the senior vice president of compliance on the line, and he's so friendly and he's so nice, and he's flying, or he's at the airport, or his laptop got stolen, or it fell into the swimming pool, or whatever story I'm going to concoct about why I need your help, why I'm having trouble accessing the database, why I need my password reset, or whatever other information that I might want. So you're going to help me. And here, I'm going to even take it a step further. So you're helping me. You're doing anything and everything that I want. Mm-hmm. But now I'm going to use you as an internal mole. And I'm going to say, hey, Ron, thanks for all of this information that you've given me. But I asked you this one question, which you didn't know the answer to. But, I have an idea of someone who might know that. Will you do me a favor and put me on hold for a minute? And will you call over there and ask this question for me? And so
Mm.
you're going to go, sure, no problem. So now when you call the person that I've researched in advance that I believe is going to have the information that I want, they're going to see your number come up as an internal number. They're going to see you're in the help area or you're in human resources or whatever area that I've chosen that so now I've turned you into an internal mole so that now you're spying for me, getting information that you're now relaying to me. And that is how powerful the social engineering ruse phone call is today, especially since so much of the technical side of phishing has been really either eliminated or significantly reduced. But the social engineering side is alive and well and thriving.
Yeah, for sure. How does one protect against it? To me, like I'm not really seeing an opportunity, especially now that synthetic voices are a thing and you can use AI to clone even my voice. You could download a podcast and
Yep.
pop it into 11 Labs. How can someone truly defend against a ruse?
Well, I think it's not as hard as it seems, but it's really critical that people are trained in sort of a real world environment, right? So you can't just tell somebody, hey, don't do this, don't do that. A lot of times when I go and I speak, or I do training, I'm in a room full of 150, 250 people and we role play, and so we'll have somebody come up on stage and I will improv with them and we'll do these things. And, I start popping out these accents, people are laughing. So it makes it fun. So when people are enjoying themselves, when people are smiling, when people are laughing, when people are paying attention because they're smiling and enjoying themselves, it's much more likely you're going to have impact that people are going to remember. If you're giving somebody a long email, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, people read 2 sentences and then they close that email and they're done with it, right? So they're not, and then the people in HR or in training are going, oh, well, we train our people. That's not training people. That's not helping your employees to not fall victim to these kinds of ploys. So I think that's one of the first things is it needs to be in person and or via Zoom. I've done events also with, large Zoom contingencies where we can still do the kind of stuff that we're doing now, role playing, and we can make it really interesting so people are going, oh my God, I had no idea that somebody could be doing an accent pretending that they were a senior executive in a far-flung office. Wow, that's crazy, right? But now they know. Other things that corporations can do is they can introduce a protocol that all phone calls, you have to verify who you're talking to. You have to have a verification process so that you know that if I say I'm Gerhard Mannheim, the Senior Vice President of Compliance for Europe, based in Frankfurt, that there's a way to confirm me. So whether it's you're going to require me to send an email to you from my, my email account, whether you're going to have some sort of code word, that changes per day. There needs to be some verification process so that you can prove that I am who I say I am before you're doing anything that could put your company in big trouble. And I'm sure the guys at MGM wish they had that verification process because, in retrospect, the verification process is so relatively simple compared to all the money, the millions and millions and millions of dollars MGM has lost, not to mention all of the stress that those employees have now been placed under because of this, terrible hack, right? And of course, the embarrassment and shame, right? If you're working in the technology department at MGM, you're probably not running around bragging about that anymore.
One of the things that came up with a conversation with my in-laws that were just visiting, they said, how did this happen? How did they get access? How could we have prevented them? Like, Ron, help me understand. And, in my eyes, if someone, like you're saying, it's all about teamwork. If a team member calls you and they need something reset, they likely had their phone lost, maybe stolen. They could have had their laptop lost or stolen. So if someone doesn't have that verification process, I can imagine like it makes it very difficult to confirm their identity. but that doesn't mean we should. Like you're saying, there needs to be the safeguards. If you're not able to verify those safeguards, then maybe you should get some help, bring another team member involved. You still might go wrong, but maybe there's an opportunity to do a little bit better. I wanted to also ask you what's been like the craziest thing that you've had to do, like, or try to get access to, and like tell me, some of the stories around that.
I'm a big football fan. My hometown is Philadelphia, so fly Eagles fly,
Let's go.
undefeated. And so I use football as a really great analogy because people say, like we all know the Russians spy on the Chinese. We all know the Chinese spy on us. But what most people are shocked to find out is how much money corporations are spending each year to spy on each other, right? And what they're looking for is the playbook on their rivals. So let's say your client, your company, your firm is number 7 in an industry, right? 7 in revenue, 7 in rankings. Well, they want to know the playbook on who's number 1, who's number 2, and who's number 3. And so we were often tasked with going into the top firms in a specific space, technology, Wall Street, automotive, pharmaceutical, and we would learn anything and everything about that company that could give our clients a competitive advantage. So we would learn about new products that were not announced. We would learn how those products were going to be priced. We would learn their organizational charts. So we've got LinkedIn these days that tells us, for the most part, who works at a company. But what LinkedIn doesn't tell you at all is who are the rock stars at that company. Who are the top producers at that company? Who are the top salespeople, the top traders, the top bankers, the top designers? And something your audience may or may not know is that most corporations rank their employees. They have an internal system that ranks their employees. They have metrics that they use to rank their employees. And we would learn what those metrics were. We would learn what the salaries of people were. And so that then we could go back to our client, who's now looking to poach top talent from their rivals. And so we would be able to have a list and we'd go, hey, these are the rock stars at this firm. These are the top people in these categories. And here are their salaries. And so you would be able to see who was underpaid. And especially, let's think if you're a young person, right? You're a young person. You're just starting out. You're 3 years at a company, but you're killing it. You're killing it. You're, rookie of the year, future Hall of Famer. But the rivals in the industry don't know about you yet because, you're only a couple years into the job, right? So if we can steal you early in your career when you're underpaid, my client, what a benefit for my client, right? And so these are just some of the things that we would get information on, that would be game changers. Because if we could, again, I go back to football, when Tom Brady was the star quarterback of the New England Patriots and he left in free agency to go to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what happened? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl.
Right.
So that gives you a sense of, and it's the same thing in the corporate world. That's what happens when you steal talent from a rival. And by the way, New England, now they're a terrible team, right? So it just shows you, and it's the same thing. If in Wall Street, I can steal your top trader and bring them to my firm, if I can, in the tech world, take one of the top designers and bring them to my firm, it's a game changer. And so we would learn that information about who those rock stars were.
So which industry is the most in demand for corporate espionage? The spying, getting like information on competitors? Is it like the tech industry? Is it these other industries? What's your perspective there?
The 2 industries I did the most work in were tech and Wall Street. Not surprising, massive amounts of money in those 2 industries, but I mean, tech and Wall Street. Yeah.
You've acquired all this information. Also sounds like a good amount of wealth. Kudos to you for making 2 million. That's goals right there. What are you going to do with all this information experience that you have now?
Well, that's why I wrote the book. I had to wait a little bit. I had to wait for the statute of limitations to expire on any crimes that I may or may not have committed. And now that the book is out, and I'm happy to announce that Ruse is in development for a TV series, which is incredibly exciting. And I think, now I can talk about, what I did. And look, let me be honest here. One of the things in the book is I reckon with the moral issues of basically the lying that I was doing, because it's not something that I recommend. It's not something that I'm proud of. It is a hell of a crazy, fun story, but at the end of the day, I'm not proud of it. And in the book, I deal with that a lot. And so one of the things I wanted to do in writing the book was to maybe be of service now and kind of go from, from the offensive side, being a spy, to now the defensive side of helping corporations and individuals protect themselves so that they're not phished, scammed, duped, or what I like to call rused.
Awesome. I'm really excited. I hope that all goes well with the TV series. I want to check it out. Are you
Mm.
going to be in like production with them, like helping write the story, or are they going to just be more so using the book with their own writers?
Yeah, great question. Normally the book writer kind of, they basically hand you a check and they push you out the door. Sometimes they kick you out on the, because they don't want the book writer around, because they don't want the book writer saying, "Oh, that's not exactly how it happened in the book," right? But fortunately for me, because I was doing this spying for 20 years, and I've got a 275-page book, which is a fraction of the crazy spying stories that I did in my career. So they really want to have me around so that they have more content and more stories. So I'll be, a consultant and an executive producer on the show, and I'll be helping to write some of the episodes.
Love it. Awesome. That is great to hear. I'm talking to a celebrity.
Ah,
Speaking of celebrities, you were in Hollywood for years and also probably met celebrities doing this corporate espionage type of work. Who's the most famous person that you've met?
well, I was a working actor, and this is the crazy thing is that, I was started out in New York. I was doing a lot of high quality theater. I starred off Broadway opposite James Gandolfini from The Sopranos in a play. I starred in another play opposite Callista Flockhart, who was married to Harrison Ford. Then I moved to LA and I did 50 major TV shows. I did ER, NYPD Blue, Melrose Place, Star Trek, lead roles in all of these shows. And so the spying thing was always kind of, oh, I'm almost done. I'm not going to need the spying anymore. I'm going to be a big actor. And then it was only at a certain point where my acting career kind of dipped, and then the spying career went crazy. That was the moment where I kind of crossed over to the dark side. But I think the most interesting celebrity interaction was with O.J. Simpson. And again, I'm an actor, and, actors don't turn down many jobs, especially young actors. And one day my manager called up and he said, "Hey, I got a job in an exercise video. Do you want to do it?" And I said, "No, no, no, no. I'm like the worst dancer in the history of mankind. I'm not. No, 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 no." And he said, "No, no, it's not dancing. It's an exercise video. It's an exercise video for guys. You're going to be doing push-ups and pull-ups, and it's with O.J. Simpson." And I said, "O.J. Simpson? Oh my God, I love O.J. Simpson." I remembered him, I was very young when he was still playing football, but I remembered him, as an announcer on Monday Night Football. And he was even pretty good in a couple of movies. And so I was a big fan. And so I say yes. And I go to the set and I show up, and it's in a dance studio, and there's a dance floor. And one of the first people I'm introduced to is a choreographer. And right away I begin to sweat because I didn't think there was going to be any dancing. And there are these women that are professional dancers. And so the choreographer lines us up and he shows us this dance routine, and everybody does the dance routine. Even OJ does it pretty well. And I am lost. I am just lost in the back, looking terrible. Choreographer comes over, and I can tell he's about to fire me. And he says, "How did you get this job? How were you hired?" And OJ says, "Oh, no, 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 no. You can't fire Rob. His dancing is so bad, it's making me look good. Rob stays." And it was a really valuable life lesson, and I think this is true in corporate world. It's certainly true in Hollywood, which is make your star look good. And I later found out OJ was nervous about his dancing, and he was nervous that he wasn't going to look great. So the fact that there was someone in the back that was really not very good made him happy. And somehow that that bonded the two of us. And somehow we became friends on that set. He was showing me this pilot that he had just shot for NBC, in which he played, believe it or not, a knife expert. That's a true story. You can't make this stuff up. And even today, OJ still continues to follow me in a strange way. When a few years ago, they did a TV series on OJ, and Cuba Gooding played OJ, and they recreated the exercise video that I was part of. So that means an actor got hired to play me in the exercise video.
What? Did they have the part where he was also thanking the person for dancing badly?
You know what? They did not. They should have. But they did not. So and I was a little surprised that the actor never called me to ask me, what his motivation was or something like that. But
wow, a lot of our audience probably is very fascinated by all this from two angles. One, from the fact that they could be a social engineer in the cybersecurity space, but also be just a little bit better at protecting their organization. So for anyone that was curious about what can they do to be just one step better from being rused by a stranger, what would be your piece of advice for them?
Well, my publisher would get mad at me if I didn't say buy the book or listen to it because it's on Audible, right? But look, all of the ploys that I used are in the book, right? The inside ploy, the compliance ploy, the dropping the grapefruit ploy. Like there are all these ploys in there that you see how we would do some initial research on a company. We would learn stuff about a company. We would learn, what was going on in the company. We would read all their press releases. We would know if the sports teams had won or lost the day before. We would know if there was a traffic jam in the city. We would know anything and everything that would enable us to seem like real people that worked at that corporation, right? And so I think one of the things is that if you're a good spy, and I like to think, people have said that I was, I can't say I was the world's greatest, but the New York Post called me the world's greatest, so I'll go with it. But I definitely was good at what I did. And 99.9% of the time, I got the information that my clients wanted. And I think that people don't realize how active corporate spies are today. Corporate spying is alive and well, thriving. One of the most shocking things is I write this book, I out myself as a corporate spy, and I cannot tell you how many corporations have reached out to me. Forget about asking me to hire me to train for them. No, they want me to spy for them. And I said, you do realize that, like, I've told the world that I'm a corporate spy. I wouldn't be a very smart spy if I outed myself and then went back to spying. But they don't care. They just want the information because it's so valuable.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
That means everybody has got to check out the book. I'm going to drop a link to it in the show notes and description wherever you're listening. Be sure to check it out. I'm going to grab it right now as well. Robert, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to chat with us. For anyone that wants to stay up to date with Robert, again, check out the show notes or description. And with that, we will see everyone next time.